2 years ago, I reviewed one of my all-time favourite games, Banjo Tooie, developed by the once good developers Rare. The late 1990s was such a great time for gamers. 3D consoles were the in thing. People were buying PlayStations, N64s and Sega Dreamcasts. Okay, maybe not so much Sega Dreamcasts. Into the 2000s, the gaming craze continued, and I think in the present we have reached a new pinnacle. Let's just ignore the microtransactions bullshit and all that crap about buying a game that no one really wanted in order to get a remastered version of the game, which is already 10 years old. Oh shit, I'm ranted again. I shouldn't really be doing that because, after all, it's Christmas. So let's take a look back at the sequel to Banjo Tooie, which was released in Millennium Year for the Nintendo 64. Now straight away, I'm going to say that everything great about the first game is still here. The moveset, the characters we've grown to appreciate, and the music. The fucking music. Oh my. Grant Kirkhope is a genius. His work on the Banjo-Kazooie games is easily his best. I like listening to the soundtracks for Kazooie and Tooie now and again to remind me of that good thing that I used to have. Now, what was that thing I used to have? Oh yeah, a childhood. The music just evokes such great memories every time I replay this. It's worth noting that I now have the Xbox Live Arcade edition of this since I was an idiot for selling my Nintendo 64. It's also worth noting that Kirkhope has done the music for some other favourite games of mine like GoldenEye 64 and Donkey Kong 64. More recently, of course, he's done the soundtrack to Banjo's spiritual successor, Yooka-Laylee, and he hit the big time when he did the score for Mario plus Kingdom Rabbids for the Nintendo Switch. Holy shit. Yeah, we will probably cover these games at some point in the future. Bottom line, Grant Kirkhope rocks, and Banjo wouldn't be the same without his compositions. I love all the music tracks in the first two Banjo games. Now, the story of Banjo Tooie is much darker than the first one. In the first one, you have to rescue Tootie from the Wicked Witch, or the Wicked Bitch as I like to call her, of the West, Gruntilda. After collecting enough of the magic jigsaw pieces known as jiggies in the various worlds found inside her lair, Banjo rescues Tootie and then kicks Grunty's ass at the top of the lair, which is one of the most gut-wrenching final bosses in video game history. I kid you not, I shit myself when I got to this part when I was a child. When I finally beat her, it was the best feeling that any kid could have. It never really was replicated later on when I got the Xbox Live Arcade version, which was released on the Xbox 360 10 years later. One thing I failed to mention in my original review of Banjo-Kazooie was that the changes which were made on the Xbox 360 version were largely detrimental, the most notable being the game saving your progress when you collect items in order to progress through the game. If you died, your progress is still saved, and items like Jinjos and musical notes were gone forever and saved in your progress. In the original N64 version, if you died, you would have to collect them over and over again. That way the game would punish you. Now, I understand that some may prefer the reasoning by Microsoft to change this, but personally I much preferred the old way because it added more of a challenge to the game. In the second game, there were not many notable differences that could be seen between the original and the Xbox versions except for the graphics, improved frame rates and faster loading times. While this sounds awesome, for some reason the synth for the music on the Xbox version just sounds off when you compare it to how it sounded on the N64, a console which came out a whole 2 generations before the Xbox 360 did. It's just weird, isn't it? You can notice in the very opening cutscene that there is a delay in the music as well, probably due to the Xbox 360 being a more powerful console than the N64 ever was, and therefore having faster loading times and faster frame rates. It's too bad that by the time Banjo Tooie was re-released in 2009 on the Xbox Live Arcade, Grant Kirkhope have already left Rare and therefore couldn't be there to test the sound on the newer version. Now, casting technical nitpicks aside, whether you own an Xbox 360 or an N64, Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie is definitely something worth checking out. Of course, I would recommend Banjo Kazooie before this as well, because you'd be a fool not to play Banjo Kazooie before playing Banjo Tooie, but whatever. In comparison to the first game, Banjo Tooie has a much darker story. The more that I think about it, there are some moments in the game which are actually kind of fucked up. As a child, I never even gave two hoots about it for a family game, but there are some things that you notice in the game now and it makes you think, what the fuck? One of Banjo's best friends, Bottles, dies, there are a ton of sexual innuendos in the game, Gruntilda should be dead after being trapped under a boulder for 2 years. Well, of course she did have a brief spell being inside a mechanical body, but that's something to talk about for another time. There's so many tonal differences in this game compared to the first one, which is genius, such as Spiral Mounting's theme being depressing instead of being jolly, and kicking the shit out of vegetables. I do wonder how this got an E for everyone rating back in the day, but at the end of the day, the way movies and video games are rated is a thing which has always baffled me, so this shouldn't really come as any surprise. So as I just mentioned, Bottles has been killed by the bitches of Eastwick, and if you thought that kidnapping Tootie in the first game was personal, well guess what?
Now it's personal.
Your goal is to bring Bottles back to life, along with the King of the Jinjos, a character who gives you the game's first Jiggy, and then is also called by the gigantic laser at the top of Cauldron Keep, where Gruntilda is plotting her revenge. Oh, fuck's sake. The game has barely started, and the main antagonist has killed 2 characters already.
Now it really is personal.
You see what I mean about it being dark? How many did she kill in the first one? Oh, none. Banjo Tooie to Banjo Kazooie is essentially what Majora's Mask is to Ocarina of Time, a sequel which has a story which a player can get invested in, as well as being much darker than its predecessor. Plus, all games came out in the same respective year.
Coincidence? I think not!
Oh, look at that, there's a reverse setting that can bring them back to life. Yeah, I'll just leave this here. Now, tell me, what does this remind you of? You sick bastards. So like before, you collect jiggies, musical notes, red feathers, golden feathers, and eggs in order to complete the game. So it plays exactly like the first game, except in this game, you learn more moves from Bottle's brother, Jam Jars.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
A mole dressed as a drill sergeant. Right. So the moves you learn from him are more advanced than before. Now Kazooie can shoot eggs, fireballs, ice, grenades and clockwork Kazooies from her mouth and her asshole. Ouch. Of course, the big thing about this game is that the 2 title characters can be separated and you can play separately as Banjo or Kazooie. On top of that, you can play as Mumbo Jumbo, that crazy shaman from the first game. He's now playable. Holy shit. Newcomer Humba Wumba is the one who can perform transformation spells in this, and quite honestly, the transformations might be better in this. If you thought that being a pumpkin was daft then think again. In this, you can be a detonator, a submarine, a snowball, and the one that tops them all, oh, fucking washing machine. Right, I rest my case. This game is officially awesome. Seriously, why are you still watching this? Find this game, play it now, buy it on an emulator for free. So yeah, as a sequel, the game just got everything right. Everything from the first game has just been expanded. Again, the level design is great. I think the levels here are bigger than the first game as well. The music is awesome. The new moves which Jam Jars gives you are unique, as well as being absolutely crazy. Rare outdid themselves when designing this game. If I have a few nitpicks about the game, then it would be that for casual gamers it may be off-putting because there are so much backtracking for you in this compared to the first game. The only world which you can collect all of its 10 jiggies in one go without leaving to the main hub world is Cloud Cuckoo Land, and that is the final level. There are a shitload of items to collect, and I'm talking like an Assassin's Creed level here. Grunty Industries is the new Rusty Bucket Bay of this game, and the final boss, while still very good, will never match to the first game. Overall though, just like Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie is also one of my favourite games. I played the crap out of it when I was a kid. I have so many fond memories of playing both of the Banjo games on the Nintendo 64 back in the day. If you put a gun to my head and asked me which one out of the two I preferred, I probably would have to say the first one because of the sentimentality of it. This one has that as well, but I found this one to be much harder to complete. But still, this was brilliant and the perfect way to take the series forward. And we were promised Banjo 3 at the end, only we didn't get that because we got this. Please tell me I don't have to review this game one day. Happy holidays everyone, and have a good one.